Okay, hot topics leading into the finale. We have to actually look back here, JT, to the start in Texas because it's going to be so important in Las Vegas and a perfect example of how one little thing can change everything in the outcome of a race.
Yeah, it only takes one person to flinch. And we saw this at Unadilla. We saw the same thing. One person jumps, everybody starts jumping. In that repeatable process, we're trying to do the same thing every time the gate drops. Goes out the window, and it's a little bit of chaos back there. Now, this scenario, Ken Roxon jumped, then Hunter jumped, and Jet even mentioned in the press conference, I wasn't going to jump, but it disrupts your thought process. You're not locked in and laser focused on the starting gate anymore. You're thinking about all these people jumping around and what's happening, and that's what happens. It gets a little chaotic. You see Dylan Ferrandis at the front, and most importantly to this story, we saw Chase Sexton at the front, and the last time we saw him get a good start, guess what? Was Unadilla, Moto 2, in this exact same scenario.
Yeah, I mean, look, the starts of these Hondas have been ridiculous. You just got to go back to Moto 1 at Texas to see Hunter and Jet essentially starting 1-2. When things are normal, they normally start up front. When they're not, well, we saw that completely upset everything. And if that happens again in Vegas, that could determine the World Championship. Now, JT, on the other end, Haiden Deegan said he wanted to fix the starts after Charlotte. Looks like he did that.
Yeah, this was really the one hole in his game leaving Charlotte. He was so dominant on speed level, fitness level, confidence level. It was just poor first lap positioning. And give him credit because this is what he mentioned. He said, hey, the starts were awful. I'm going to fix it. And hey, when somebody says that and then does it, gets out front on the first lap, both motos in Texas, and the rest was history. He just kind of rode away from the field, and he is dangerously close to just going on a run here. You know, I don't have any reason to think why we won't see the same exact thing in Las Vegas because everything on the Haiden Deegan program is firing right now.
Yeah, and don't forget, we talk so much about the $500,000 to win the 250 World Championship, but there's $50,000 for an individual race win on the line. So Haiden, he even said it on Friday in Texas, he wants to get all the money. He's looking at them as big bonus race weekends, so there's no reason that he won't want to win again in Las Vegas and collect the max for both the race win and the title. Let's get to the 250 SMX points here. We can just show you the top 10. That's where the moving and shaking is going on. And remember, we're triple points, JT. Anything can happen. We'll get deeper into that with Clinton Fowler. One name that really stands out to me there is Julian Boumer. 5th in points going into the finale.
Yeah, and you think of what's possible. If he goes out and has that Charlotte-type weekend in Las Vegas, how quickly he could jump up. And you're talking about tens of thousands, if not more, jumping up the field there. So I look at all those guys, the Pierce Browns, all of these guys, maybe they're too far out to win this SMX World Championship, but to jump up to 3rd, 4th, 5th, and really make a lot of money with one solid weekend, it's up for grabs, Weech.
Also, as part of the SMX program, we have our World All-Stars. This weekend, we ran Super Minis, and they put on a good show last year, playoff round 2 in Chicago. They did it again here. First of all, shout out to Carson Wood, last year's winner. That's him last going into the first turn, and he was able to make his way to a podium. Brody Moss with the win. It's good racing.
Yeah, it was, and you see that the pass there made by Moss, and he even mentioned he watched Eli Tomac make that move time and time again, but these are the stars. This is what it's all about, is watching these guys progress. And in a couple years, we're going to be sitting on this very program talking about these guys chasing an SMX World Championship. So it's fun to watch their development, and we're learning a lot about them on the way.
Yeah, and we'll have more of that this weekend. This is the 250 World All-Stars coming up, so a little bit more household names. We expect the likes of Drew Adams and Cole Davies, who are standouts in the SX Futures and the Moto Combines. I think Caden Minear, who made a name for himself, young rider out of Australia, who won a moto at the Ironman Moto Scouting Combine, will be on hand as well. And that's really the next group that'll be into the pros and battling, making this 250 class even deeper. And you never know who's going to stand out. Because guess what? Late in the year, JT, maybe we should just expect this. Joe Shimoda always rallies around this time of the year, and even coming in injured, he's been good.
Yeah, I think he has been one of the most underrated stories of these SMX World Championship playoffs because leaving Unadilla, I don't think many people even thought he'd be racing here. We weren't even sure the week of Charlotte that he would be racing, and yet here he is, a podium mainstay, and it's not impossible for him to be SMX World Champion. He was runner-up last year in this very championship, and to think he's doing this at less than 100%, He deserves a ton of credit. Even in the shadow of Haiden Deegan, he has been a standout performer in the month of September.
And if you don't think the riders want this, remember we used to laugh about the lack of block pass ability of Joe Shimoda. We'd seen him try it a couple times in Supercross, and he failed every time. He actually block passed Deegan in Los Angeles last year because he needed the points. So things change when there's that much money on the line, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be anything goes, I think, this weekend, and that's not in Joe's character. So that shows you right there. You know, there's all this conversation about what does this mean? Do these championships matter? Well, that's up for you to decide, but I can tell you the amount of money at stake. Haiden Deegan's on the precipice. He can win this weekend of making $650,000 in 3 weeks. That is a huge deal outside of anything else. So I think it's going to matter. We'll just see what that does to the results. And if you're wondering the downside of that, you see the 250 attrition. This weekend was testament to these guys absolutely going for it. We saw injuries. We saw crashes on a very, very tricky racetrack.
Yes, so in the LCQ, they ended up taking 7 of the 8 riders into the motos. But even wilder than that, more attrition. Nate Thrasher goes down again. He also crashed in Charlotte, and he was coming into the playoffs with injury. So Thrasher doesn't line up for Moto 2, and they end up taking the 8th out of 8 in the LCQ, Matty Jorgensen, into the motos. So every 250 rider that showed up ended up in the motos. So privateers, get your bike, get on the road, get to these races, especially in the wild 250 class. Let's see. Swoll was out. Mumford was out. We mentioned Bennett was out. And then Chance Hymas, that's probably the worst news of all. Tweaks the knee in Charlotte, not able to go in Texas. It's just been wild in that 250 division. In fact, I think we're going to need a little update on the recovery process for a key racer here. And now all that attrition, there is another part of that story. Chance Hymas, the knee injury, is going to knock him out of participating in the Motocross of Nations for Team USA. This will be the SMX medical update brought to you by the McGinley Clinic. Who will be Chance Hymas' replacement? Not someone you'd be expecting. It's Cooper Webb. Yes, a 450 racer. We hear he tried the 250 on Wednesday morning, liked it, and said, let's go. Webb has participated for Team USA before. Ironically, he raced a 450 at that event when he was a 250 racer, and now he's going the other direction. So at the moment, at least, it's Cooper Webb, Chase Sexton, and Aaron Plessinger for Team USA now, and we wish Chance Hymas a speedy recovery from ACL surgery. Okay, so winners in many ways, Team Honda over the weekend, not just Hunter Lawrence winning the race, but how cool is this? Honda has been supporting the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation for 30 years now, but they really rolled it out with really cool special graphics on each of their 4 factory race bikes, which is actually based on this Imaginary Friend Society. That's a cartoon that the Brain Tumor Foundation puts together so kids can understand the cancer treatment they're about to have. And Hunter Lawrence, as always, saying and doing all the right things.
Obviously, we come in and try to, give them a bit of happiness and try and make their day a bit more special, and hand out posters. We had a big snack box, but I'm no idiot. That doesn't fix the problem at hand. So it was a huge eye opener. Just kind of really more proud that we're collaborating with them. The Cook's children and the pediatric brain, charity as well for these kids is something that is a pretty serious topic, and yeah, so it was an eye-opener to see.
Yeah, I think some good perspective for Hunter there. We get so caught up in the results aspect of racing, and we take it so seriously, but there's a lot going on in this world that is much bigger than the racing aspects on the weekend. But that's where it got better for Hunter. You want to talk about sobering morning and the perspective? He goes out and has the afternoon of his life, puts himself into the SMX World Championship lead, gets the win, and this is the guy we weren't really talking about. He didn't give us a whole lot in Charlotte. The end of the Pro Motocross Championship wasn't the one he wanted, but here we are. He goes into the final race with the red plate, and it wasn't a dominant afternoon, but he did what he had to do. He won that first moto, and he did enough in the second one to hold on to it. So kudos to Hunter Lawrence. I did not have him leading this championship going into the finale on my bingo card.
And that leads us to this scenario. Now, we're saying winner take all, because if Jet, Hunter, or Chase win the race, they are the world champion because of the triple points. Even Jet could make up 9 if he gets a race win and he'd have the tiebreaker because he'd have 2 of the 3 overalls. But I say it's kind of funny to say winner take all, because second even gets $500,000, by the way. So winner takes most, but that is just a wild scenario, and I cannot, to me, count out guys like Tomac or Webb or Roxon or somebody else getting in there and making this math even crazier.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. We'll just let it play out. But I think if you offered Hunter Lawrence a winner-take-all scenario after Charlotte, he would take this 100 times over, and it just adds another level of intrigue to this championship weekend. Again, I don't know what more you could ask for than this, to have this type of setup where it's going to be nonstop action, and we're going to be leaning on Clinton Fowler the entire evening because the math is going to be coming fast and furious, just like it was a year ago.
We'll lean on Clinton a little bit later in the show there as well, but I'm excited about the Tomac prospect because he's so far back in points he might not win the title, but you could argue that Tomac's maybe been the best rider in these first 2 races. The playoff seeding didn't help him, but I wouldn't rule out Eli winning the race, and then the champion is the second place rider. Take all. Just the mind boggles with all the prospects and scenarios headed our way this weekend. If a little further back in the pack, JT, we would love to mention Aaron Plessinger as one of those spoilers. Unfortunately, he's not quite 100%, but just listen to what he's dealing with, and you'll see that it's cool that he's even still out there.
Yeah, pain level 1 to 10 is I mean, at the worst, it's about a 8 or a 9. It didn't feel great when I was riding on Thursday, or Wednesday, but yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna have to tough it through it.
Yeah, for AP, that's really tough because he even mentioned before the race in Texas that if it had been something that really mattered, part of a race or anything like that, he would be able to live with it. But these what I call the fake start, they don't mean anything. Everybody's just practicing. To have an injury come out of that is such a tough blow. And I always chastise these riders. Why are you putting yourself in harm's way on these starts that don't really mean anything? But if you know anything about AP, he's going to give you everything he has all the time. It's just a little bit unfortunate that, yeah, he's dealing with a bum shoulder, and he's going to have to go through the finale and Motocross of Nations not at 100%.
And now finally we put the crosshairs on Las Vegas. It has been a while since we've actually had a race there, I think 2019, but JT, you raced in a ton of them at the old Supercross at Sam Boyd Stadium or the Monster Energy Cup. What's it like to race in Vegas?
Well, I think it's a long-awaited return to Las Vegas for the end of any series. Monster Cup was a great way to go out in October. We had the May Monster Energy Supercross finale there for many, many years. But I think everybody's excited to go back. Now, what it's going to look like out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, that is yet to be determined. But all of the fun things that encircle this event, it's going to be a true throwback. And I don't know of anyone who is not excited to wrap something up once again in Las Vegas.
All right, well, the track, the start, all these things are going to determine who's getting the lion's share of all this money and, of course, the trophy and the prestige. So show us the track map. What do you think when you look at the layout, at least?
Well, it's on a drag strip again, right? So there are a lot of similarities to what Charlotte and ZMAX Dragway offered, but it is faster. There's a bigger outdoor section of the racetrack. But what I'll be looking for is passing opportunities, because that's been the toughest thing so far in these Super Motocross World Championship playoffs is passing. So I think riders have to get out in front of that. They have to really get creative. And what I would recommend is on Friday, learn the track, but spend a lot of time thinking about alternative lines. Where can I make a move if I don't get the start? If you're Chase Sexton and the start doesn't go your way, figure out a way to overcome that adversity and get to the front. You can't have that first moto in Texas scenario happen again in Las Vegas if you want to be world champion.
Okay, that's it for this show. The only thing left is to watch the race on Saturday. If you're anywhere on the West Coast, heck, anywhere in the world, fly to Vegas. Come check it out in person. Always a fun town to visit, especially when the racing's in town. Or if you can't, again, this is a West Coast night race. So qualifying, race day live, 4:30 Eastern. That show will begin. We'll have the whole crew there. That's available on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States. We'll have a pre-race show at 9:30, and we will start racing at 10 o'clock Eastern. And we'll have a post-show, by the way, after that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of podium celebrations to discuss there. Also, don't forget the Telemundo Deportes YouTube channel. You can listen to the Spanish broadcast call when you put this kind of stuff on the line, those guys are going to get even more excited than usual, which is hard to believe.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.